students are writing an exam right now.
Okay.
So that is one constraint.
Right.
And the exam is going on from 1 to 4.
Okay.
So there's a little constraint. But
No
still,
problem.
I've asked few students.
Okay.
So I think it is really about making this very fun so that they find the space to be expressive and really, share with us what their perceptions are, what their perspectives are. And I think it's a good idea to have all of us actually jump into the discussion and build that direction.
Yeah. Lovely.
So it's very open-ended and very fluid.
Absolutely. I heartily endorse what you say. So let's see how we can, Yatin, are we ready to start? What do you think? You'll have to give us your written permission.
Sir, yes, sir, please.
Okay, we can. All right, namaskar to all of you there, ladies and gentlemen, youngsters, students out here who have joined this session today. Well, this session, as you know, is held the last Friday of every month, and it happened to therefore be the 31st of May. On Arti Ahluwalia, I'm not going to say very much. She heads in India what is something called Eco-Civilization, which is a global group headed by the Deputy Prime Minister, I think, or the Deputy Premier of one of the countries in Europe, and she will tell you more about it. And she's also the representative of the United Nations. She is a kind of a coordinator of publications. And she was telling me a fortnight ago that she's just now completed another set of things that as a body of work for the United Nations. You will see on the chat box a detailed sort of profile of hers. And when I first listened to her, must have been about a month ago, I told myself that people like her have got to have a greater reach, that students, faculty members of colleges everywhere, professional colleges, particularly of architecture, of engineering primarily, and then of course of these business schools, have to listen to someone like Arti, for she blends enterprise on one side. She runs a business which is Hyderabad based, and at the other end of the spectrum, she's also been doing these remarkably wonderful things at the public purpose level, synchronizing many of those concerns that we all have that are global when it comes to climate action. Climate change is one of the most pressing issues of our time. I don't have to tell any one of you, if you are from Delhi and if you have seen the last 3 days of 52 degrees plus, it's not just Delhi. Delhi is an extension of the desert of Thar, and Rajasthan has been seeing 52, 53 degrees for the last, say, 4 or 5 days now. And why is that happening? What is this transition? What is this transition you need as professionals into, shall we say, a green economy? And why is that essential? Green jobs, what are these things called green jobs? And how are they going to help us face, as you move from your 20s into your 30s and your 40s? How is it going to help you face climate change by learning to size and to solution greenhouse gas emissions and reduction of carbon tons, of conserving resources, of promoting sustainable practices, shall we say? What are these green jobs, and are there companies actually offering such jobs to you all if you're going to step out of the portals of your colleges after you become graduates of business administration or business management or engineering or architecture? So how do green jobs provide the opportunity for you to make a positive impact on the world? And how can you be enabled into feeling as though you're contributing to something greater than yourself? Working in a green job anywhere, in a company or in the NGO sector or the development sector, can also be very, very fulfilling. Ask me, I've been doing this for 40 years, although I ran a company for about 20, 25 years, which was sort of mainstreaming sustainability. And if you're going to be working on such projects that are focused on improving the world, there's a great deal of satisfaction beyond earning money. Green jobs are positions where workers' duties or workers' responsibilities directly contribute to the environment's well-being. And you will hear Arti Ahluwalia also talking about this. These roles are varied and can encompass a wide range of sectors. Renewable energy is one of them. Environmental protection is another. Water management, waste management, net zero energy, net zero water, resource conservation initiatives. All of these come under that. And there are I will end this in a minute or so by telling you all that there are 5 reasons why I believe green jobs make sense. One, jobs in this sector are on the rise very clearly. In the next 5 to 6 years, you'll see many more people getting into becoming green professionals. The second is that in picking a job like this, you will find purpose in your work. You could be an accountant, you could be somebody else in technology, but it's not half as fulfilling as it will be to be working as a green professional. The third reason, you will know you're doing a bit to save the planet or do something that impacts your neighborhood, your company, your city, and so on. The fourth reason, you can combine your personal love and passion for the environment with your technical and your soft skills, of course, to make for a career in the green sector. And the last reason I must tell you is that the pay will be very, very good if you are somebody who steps into becoming a green professional now. I'll stop there for now and request Professor Rachna Rajpal to see if she can share a few words which can motivate many of these participants. We have over 20 plus just now. To see that they listen to Arti Ahluwalia, they see what they can learn and assimilate from what she's going to offer. Over to you, Rachna.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. I would just like to pen down my thoughts since I'm into academics and there are students, since I'm working in Manav University, and there are students from every field. So what is important is it is not only architecture and interior design. Since I'm an architect, I deal with students of design. But what is important is students from engineering field also. They have got various opportunities. They can even become environment like toxicologists. Then there are green chemists. People from bee pharma industry, they can become green chemists so that they do not release gases and they don't use chemicals which are basically toxic to the environment. Then people related to this agriculture field, they can go into forest and land management practices. Then people can become land restoration specialists also, because conservation is one very important field, and retrofitting and conservation, people can go in for this field also. Then there could be water management specialists like hydrologists who work on energy resources. Then if we go for the planning field, we have transport planners who can become green transport planners, and they can work on EV vehicles and other sustainable practices. Then like in building design, there are so many other issues like energy efficiency. So people can become like engineers and managers who work on sustainable energy practices, like they can become a building performance analyst and all. And there are organizations who give certificate courses also, and people can even become like policy analysts, so that they can help the government to develop policies so that penalties are less. And people should and like as in education, people, whether they are from the science field or from biology or ecology, anything, maybe people can go in for a wildlife conservation. See, what is important is we need to understand that there is so much of climate change mitigation going on, and we need to work on sustainable resource sustainability, and we need to work on our energy renewable resources, and we need to use solar power, like hydro power, renewable energy resources, which are basically free of cost, and it's a god's gift basically. Then we can work on secure, like public health. Public health is very important. Consciousness and awareness is very important, which is very important in health sector. And there are like in there, it is a corporate responsibility also to consume, like for example, it's a basic simple thing that like every office uses computers, so we can have like a solar bank, so that we can use the same solar energy to conserve electricity and not use any government generated power and all. So what is important is this is very important for economic growth also. It will improve public health, it will reduce the greenhouse emissions. See, what is important is, as sir has rightly said, in the next few years sustainability and energy conservation will be a very important topic, and maybe we have very good jobs in this sector. Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. You ran up an entire spectrum of jobs that are available. Professor Gunjan Kumar. Gunjan, can you unmute and turn on your video?
Sir, I think there is some network issue.
There's some
And
network
it's
issue,
very, very
Doctor.
lovely
Yeah,
to
yes,
have
sir.
you.
Probably
Gunjan.
network
You're
issue.
always a delight to listen to. Gunjan, can you turn on? Okay. I, looks like it. Looks like it. Okay. Are you able to hear me? But yes. Am I? You're able to hear me? Or is that a?
So it's slightly
No, sir,
choppy.
there was some
Are
network
you
issue.
able to hear me? No. Are you able to hear me?
Now we can.
Yes.
Now we can.
Okay.
I think Professor Gunjan has switched on his mic. Professor Gunjan, are you there? Would you like to speak, please?
No, let ma'am go ahead. I will go later on.
Okay.
Let Arti ma'am go ahead.
Okay. Doctor has dropped off. I think his network was poor. Arti, can I leave the floor to you, please? I mean, Rachna has given enough of
Yes.
background, enough of things in terms of what students may expect, what their options are, and this is really what we want to hear from you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. All yours now.
Thank you, Payal. And in fact, thank you, Dr. Rachna. And so also actually built on exactly the things that I mean to bring today. And this is good because this gives me the confidence that we're all on the same page. Before I actually go into the session, what I would actually request is, can we have all the participants on the screen? I think it would help if we can make this extremely interactive, and I'd love to hear from everybody who's in the session to really share what they feel about certain things that we're going to discuss in the course of the next 75 minutes. So would that be possible for us to bring everyone on screen?
I'm not sure we can, Arti, because this is set up like a session where they are
So
in the
then-
audience. We'll
then
open
No,
how
up.
only the panelists can switch on theirs.
Yeah, they have different links.
Okay, fair enough. So maybe when we see somebody raising hand, we can pause
Absolutely.
to pay attention to that.
And we
All
can
right.
ask them to write on the chat box or
Yeah.
send in their questions as we go.
Wonderful. So let's take it up like this. Welcome everybody to a session that we are calling that why is green career important for us? What does it really mean? What does it stand for us today? So in fact, this is the first thing that occurred to me when I thought, what is the next layer of human beings going to do in the world? And normally when I interact with students, I start with an apology to everybody in terms of the kind of world that we've left for you to deal with. So we take this ownership of apologizing in terms of how this world has been, handed to you as a legacy or not. But let's look at what could be some of the next steps that we can take given the world that we have today. So I'd like to set the agenda here for everybody. And there are a couple of things that we would focus on specifically. What does it mean for us? What do green careers really mean? Why do we need them? What should we bring to the table? And definitely, how do we pull it together? So not in this sequence, not in this order, but we are trying to interweave all of these four aspects of the agenda as we move along in the next 75 minutes. I hope that's okay with everybody. And feel free to, anytime something occurs to you or you're able to connect with the things that we are discussing, feel free to leave your comments in the chat box, and we'd love to pay attention to that and build on this. So moving forward, I'd like to say, let's play. So here comes questions for everybody. In fact, the key question, what does it mean to you? Beyond what Dr. Rachna has actually said, what Sir has said, based on your current exposure, I believe everybody's a student of, mostly we're students of engineering here and architecture. So what does it really stand for you? What does it signify for you when you think of green career? I will give you about 30 seconds to post your comments in the chat box. And I'd love to hear from everyone, and then we go further on that. So I think we have enough and more cues as you know during the opening of this session in terms of how should we be thinking about it. I think green careers is a new perspective. From my side, I think it's a perspective. based on this perspective, what occurs to us? So if we're in the first year, second year, third year, fourth year, or final year of engineering, or doing MTech, or one of those subjects, what have we formed as a part of our worldview in the context of what we are acquiring as education? Does that question help? Dr. Rachna, what do you feel? Okay, can we have some of the responses coming in from students? All right, we've got one here. Shivajit says, I would like to say green careers are positions that focus on protecting the environment, reducing waste, conserving nature resources, nature sources. Wonderful. Okay, that's one. And I must say, the amount of time we take to spell out our first thoughts is already indicative of the kind of exposure we are providing ourselves in the context of what green education or green careers can mean. So it is about really quickening up on expanding how we are studying and what we are studying, and where do we see ourselves applying it in the future. Minimizes harmful impacts on nature, green careers, energy conservation, protection of environment, sustainability. Brilliant. So keep these answers rolling, because we are going to look at, what is the perception we have from the industry, from the government, in the context of education, in the context of students, in the context of how we are preparing ourselves for the future. Essentially, that is the purpose of education. Let's confess. Okay. So moving on, let me just close this and we move on to the next part of things. So the question to ask is that, yes, sustainability. Yes, we've got, okay, so I see more responses coming in. So energy conservation, protection of the environment. How many of us really feel that we are doing justice to the necessities of the time in the context of, let's say, energy, in the context of agriculture, or even technology, the way it has been mainstreamed in the last 10 to 15 years? Of course, most of you must have been kids at that time, but I'm sure you're possibly one of the first people who've gotten seasoned in terms of technology use. So when you look at protecting the environment or reduction of waste, do we really feel that we are doing justice to the amount of technology, the type of technologies, the kind of value chains that we have? Do we see a change happening? Do we see the environment or the climate coming under better control? Not really. So the question to ask is that, are we solutioning right? And this is a big gap today. And I speak from the point of view of somebody who's trying to get into the energy sector, and specifically the green energy sector. When I talk to different governments and functionaries from different governments worldwide, and even in India, when I'm interacting with people who are currently building the entire, let's say, green hydrogen adoption, right, or the technologies for it, there are so many gaps in how we are developing this. And the interesting thing is that we have talent, but it is highly underinvested, because this talent has emerged with a singular focus of finding or, building a business. So we've got sufficient amount of marketplaces happening in the world in different contexts of, let's say, green careers, and we'll come to what are some of the interesting careers that we can look at. But even from the impression that everybody has here, when I look at the deficits that exist, it is not just technology related. It is related to policy. It is related to the audit capacities. It is related to looking at multiple aspects of the entire ecosystem. So the idea of getting into a green career or building yourself towards it is not about maintaining that singular focus that, okay, I want to get into climate action. Okay, what are we going to do in climate action? There are a million things that can be done that are yet not identified as potential career pathways. So clearly, when we look at the final outcome in the context of how do green careers contribute to the economy, we still have such a huge gap in the actual framework. And for me, I become very hopeful when I look at the younger generation because well, there's a lot of hope from all of you here. So you might as well take it as this might be a pressurizing situation for you, but it is also a very huge opportunity to course correct and redo some of the mistakes of the past. Understanding the fact that we are all on a huge, gigantic evolutionary journey. So let's look at some of the aspects to consider when we think or when we want to look within and evaluate that are we truly solutioning right? Interestingly, when we map challenges in a context, we work with a lot of blinders. I think in the world of polycrisis, as we like to call it, where there are wars going on, there's food insecurity, there's energy crisis, there's, well, climate is going haywire. We still in year 2024, after living for so many years on this planet, we're still looking at gender equity, which is actually quite insulting for both genders. The question to ask is that, are we mapping this landscape sufficiently well to find ourselves in this pathway, to find ourselves in the career that we're building? Like Dr. Hariharan said, that what are you going to become in 20 to 30 years? Will you be happy? Will you be satisfied? Will you feel that you've contributed meaningfully and applied yourselves well after investing within yourselves, mindfully and in alignment with the modern and the future or the emerging context? So this is the first thing that as students, I think I would encourage you to dwell on, think about, and really have these discussions internally within your peer groups, or even with some of the faculty members that you interact with, the kind of research that you do, the kind of information discovery and hunting and sourcing that you do. So it is about really looking at a whole system and then looking at what are the gaps in the system and applying yourselves, investing yourselves to fill those gaps rather than saying, hey, I created something, let's see how I can market it. This entire overload of consumption has happened for multiple reasons, and that actually is our actual area of work. So when you think about becoming a part of solution forming or becoming a part of the whole solutioning, these are the things that we need to start considering afresh. Fortunately, students here have come in a time when big data has already become, a thing of the past. So we're accelerating towards better and more intuitive information systems. So the kind of access that we have and the kind of opportunity and playground that we have is humongous. And it's also, like I keep saying, that it is an opportunity for you to build on that. The second aspect, I think what we need to look at is transdisciplinarity. So are we confined to a limited view of specialization? Now, this brings to mind something very interesting, and I don't exactly remember the quote, but I walked into the school building, and right at the reception, there was this huge wooden tablet by a poet called, I think, Robert Heinlein. And I forget the exact quote, but I'll cite some of it from you, that a human being should be able to cook a meal, change a diaper, con a ship, conquer a nation, build peace, till the land, be tech savvy, because specialization is clearly for insects. So as human beings, the kind of multidimensionality we have, some of it is still not mapped and tabbed despite the amount of neuroscience that's been applied to us. We are such dynamic creatures that we cannot function in a singular path. If you think of people who who are very single-minded and are very singular in their approach, you can clearly see how much they've missed out on. How much have they not stepped up to? It is because that is also part of a certain social conditioning that fortunately is increasingly becoming a thing of the past. So with the newer generation, we have this capacity in us because of the kind of exposure that is available to us. And the fact that, yes, academically, in terms of the number of fields that have come for research and study, that has also expanded in your time. So make the most of it and think about things from, I normally say this, that I love to work with system thinking, I love to work with design thinking, the agile philosophy, and sometimes going out of the orbit to think. You'd actually find that sentence on my LinkedIn profile. Because till the time we're not thinking outside the orbit, till the time we're not asking the question, who the hell put the box there? You ask us to think out of the box, but who put the box there, right? Till the time we're not stretching ourselves in that direction, we will also continue to follow the legacy of confined thinking and specialization. Of course, it is important, but we can't solve problems solely based on the specialization capacity, right? So that is the second thing to consider. The third is a humongous playground for us, that is the social equity building. Now, this is very interesting. You might question, what is really social equity? Is this like a topic that somebody in psychology should be talking about, or sociology? No, it is a topic that has become central to the existence of all life on this planet. So if you think about it, and I'm hoping that everybody understands what VUCA is. If you do not, then look it up on Google. It is all about the vulnerability, the uncertainty, the complexity, and the ambiguity in our environment. And normally we are confronted by this unless there's a climatic or a geographical condition. Mostly we're confronted by VUCA because of the human intervention or the human action. So when you look at social equity building, it is about, I'll give you an example. So one of the aspects of social equity is, let's not differentiate between people who are at a certain social strata. We still continue to do that. And there is an inequity there. Inequity would lead to disbalance. How difficult is that to figure out? Second example is, let's say gender disbalance, okay, or gender inequity. It's interesting to note that if we divide the two conventional genders in 50-50% population, which is somewhere there already, let's also understand that for the longest time, we've built on information, made decisions on only 50% of participation across human history. Can we visualize the immensity and the magnitude of that gap in our own evolution? So these are the things that we have to consider when we are looking at developing our capability to participate in the emerging green careers, because green does not mean technology. Green does not just simply mean sourcing. Green means intention. Green means how attentive do we become to the system and develop integrated solutions. Look at multiple aspects and dimensions of challenges that we're confronted by. So urban settlement as of today is on 14% of the total habitable landmass in the world. Now, within this 14%, how many cities are we going to break down and redo? We can't. So how is it that we are going to solve the problems of, urban misconduct? Let me put it that way. Okay. So in terms of resource consumption, in terms of infrastructure development practices, in terms of how things move or they don't, or why does that happen, all of this becomes a part of a very central realization to the whole capacity to solve problems. And that central aspect is our cognizance towards social equity. Because at the end of the day, if you think about it, it's very interesting that, as human beings, we keep coming on the planet and we keep exiting it. Now, if we were that able, then the initial people would have just continued to survive. No, we are supposed to be on that evolutionary journey. We have to continually contribute to the evolution of the single body of humanity. Do we ever call monkeys by names? Yes, we call them by different species because, well, we've categorized them. We look at an ape or a monkey, you say, oh, monkey, right? So it is one body of, that species that we refer to. But within humanity, because of the kind of social disorder and chaos that has been seeded And specifically, I refrain from saying that, but then I don't, mainly because of capitalistic mindset. I think that is something that needs to be disbanded in a huge way. So if you think about it, when you want to question what career path you should select or how you should develop it, what you need to invest in it, how you should turn that into an ability and offering, something that you can bring to the table. These are the 4 dimensions to really consider while looking at how you want to apply what you're studying and make a career out of it. So at this point, I'd like to take a pause and maybe bring in Professor Rachna and Payalji and maybe Professor Gunjan as well, to share some of your insights in terms of how do you view these as very central to developing the academic and the application capability of students.
Right. I think if you can invite Professor D.S. Ramakrishna Rao, who is an architect from Mysore, to be part of the panel, that will help. Also, I've sent you a message to invite Professor Inayatullah here, so that they can also join this discussion. Over to you, Rachna.
Wonderful, wonderful. Please.
Yes, ma'am, you've given really basically ignited the minds. See, as an academician, I personally feel that whatever branch you choose, whatever career path you choose, you can include sustainability in that particular thing. Like we can in agriculture, in food management, in water management, in the waste management, everywhere sustainability comes. And whatever career path, whether if like as I'm an architect, I am basically involved with interior design and design students. So what is important is whether we are doing fashion or whether we are doing fashion designing or we are doing product designing or we are doing interior designing, it could be anything. So what is important is we can include the factor of sustainability, and we can go and consider reuse and retrofitting and basically conservation of resources. And in architecture also, what is important is there are so many fields like landscape design, transport planning. So energy is one thing which is basically we need to conserve at every level. And regarding the career opportunities, we have got various jobs like bee farmers. Anybody who is doing a bee farmer, he also can go into research of those chemicals which are not causing harm to the environment. And maybe for example, if we go for I don't want to name a company, but manufacturers of plywood and building construction industry. So what is important is the toxics and the chemicals. The research can be more research can be done on that, so that they don't harm the environment. So, and moreover, the policy makers, people are who are pursuing, students who are pursuing career in humanities and in policy making, they should know what is sustainability and what is a green environment, and maybe they can be a part of the policy decision makers on the government side, so that overall we create a good climatic effect, and we don't cause harm to the environment.
Absolutely.
Then what is more important is energy security. Whatever energy we have in the environment on the globe, that should be conserved. And there are many people who are working on conservation architects. They are all working on all these factors, the biomass and the energy fuels. Whatever we have, we should learn to conserve. And public health definitely is very important, because ultimately the side effect and the bad side effect is the health part. So that is what I wanted to add.
Absolutely. In fact, just before I invite Sir back in, I get this question a lot of times in terms of ESG compliance in the existing industries, for example, right? Now, the question is that who's going to implement it? Who's going to make sure that, organizations become compliant? Where is the manpower? Where is the educated manpower? Okay, so who are these people who are really going to formulate policies and frameworks and standards? What is the background, and what is the range and depth and the magnitude of the thinking? And again, transdisciplinarity. Do we come in with that kind of a capability to lift the system from the down dumps it's in, right? So these are some of the very pertinent questions. And yes,
Correct.
I would definitely like to invite Dr. Rao in.
And Arti, yes. Are you there, Ms. Rao? Are you there? Yes.
It's seen on the screen.
I don't think he has Yatin is included. I can't include him because I'm not host. Well, you raised another
He's
issue,
in,
Arti. If you
he's
can
pan,
hear me clearly.
he's been included as a panelist, sir.
He's there.
Is there?
All right. So, Ms. Rao, do you want to chip in? Do you want to add to this? Gunjan, do you want to
Sure,
add
sir.
anything to what
Yes,
both of them have been having?
Sure,
Yes,
sure,
please.
sure.
Go ahead.
So very
And
first,
your insights
I
will be
think
interesting because you're an engineer. Yeah.
correct.
You come from being an engineer. That's
Okay, fine. In the discussion till we have made, let me put the dimension here, and also let me put the both aspect. One that all Arti ma'am she has addressed, and also as a teacher, I will also put the question of on the behalf of complete student community. Fine. So these two segment I will speak. First, let me inform all of you that during this, you all know that for a green building, as mentioned by ma'am and all, even all panelists here regarding the green building and the construction. I was earlier with the part of one the workshop that is against the capacity building program through our West Bengal ECBC cell that we all know that Bureau of Energy Efficiency has their nodal center in every state, and then that center has a capacity building program in order to make this capacity building across the nation or the state. So around this West Bengal, we delivered around more than 30 workshops for the capacity building with various stakeholders, including the government, municipal authority, the student community, engineer community. So having all the prospect we have developed. But you know, reason it was failed, I can say, means if you refer the ECBC actual implementation status, what was initially expected and what was today, there is a huge gap. And the failure of the implementation, I can say, majority is due because of the capacity building program, because the model that was targeted one workshop, few workshop, and every organization is sending the unwilling horses, just the name sake of that, as this person is already trained for during this workshop. That model was, I think, as a policymaker need to be rethink. What I personally feel, that was my first take on the policy fronts regarding the capacity building program I am saying. Because also let me inform all of you that the ECBC now, the revised ECBC is upcoming, and it is already given in the public platform for a comments. So when learning from that only, if you notice, when the residential segment Econivas Samhita was launched, what they have done is they have kept out the simulation part, because where is the big bottleneck? Energy simulation was the big bottleneck. Okay, so having this and also the software learning part. So Econivas Savita, they have learned this where is the constraint, the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, and they have added the means they have developed the like a index which is more in the common language. So for that, what Arti ma'am has mentioned, you must have a interdisciplinary and the social interconnection, because when you are going to talk the technology to the social or common people, that cannot be work in the technical language. That must be in the language of the, I can say, what occupant looking for. So that is very important, and that's come through a very detailed, I can say, the participation of various stakeholders. That's very important. I presented here the case study of ECBC first and the ECBC commercial or ECBC residential. Where is the gaps and how the policymaker is thinking to bridge the gap. This is the one case study I presented. Now I'm putting you second example here, which is coming from my own personal consultancy works. that I just delivered 2 months before in a very rural sector. You all know the Kosi segment of Bihar is a very flood prone area where we delivered this project. And then, the reason I want to point out this complete gathering is it's not only the technology. Ma'am also mentioned about the technology. When you go to this technology, I'm giving example again here. Now, for a cooling solution, we have a technology. We all know. If for just for a student perspective, let me inform. If you even any common man, you are finding as too hot. Hariharan sir has very mentioned that 52. The immediate solution people think is that as the AC. Put the AC. Fine. So then, if you go a little bit more details, people will find as maybe the central chiller system is there. Now, if you go further more details, more easy installation, VRF system people is thinking for. These are the technology existing. Now, when as a solution provider, you are going to the client, your mindset cannot be only to sell the technology. I'm giving you this blunt comment, noticing the very big HVAC consultancy firms who is giving the solutions in India. You can take the names. I think you are in the right. I'm not because it is a public platform. Don't I want to put any names of any organization? But these are the big non-brand, and I'm sure their product is in your house. This is the keyword I'm giving you in your house. So having this, when you go, they are providing a solution to this very rural segment of Bihar, having a 90% people first time user of AC without knowing the customer. This is the G+3 nursing home gyno facility, and they are providing the VRF solution. Just see, a first time 95% user customer, they are providing a solution with the VRF. Later on, we customize it with our own competency, and then segmented in 3: non-AC zone, AC zone, and a dedicated, that is the medical requirement for AC zone. And the complete cooling tonnage, which was initial proposed around 17 TR, we have scaled down to 35 TR, almost 50% reduction of the cooling demand. And also, we have not gone with a VRF, which was initially cost 1.2 crore. We have given this solution in 45 lakhs only. Just see what the technology means and what is the competency required when you are selling the technology.
Absolutely.
This is two example I have given to this complete gathering to think for, and the interconnection, even the marketing. You are not to just sell the product. You have to provide the solution, a solution to the customer. So knowing the customer is very important. These 2 points I have given here.
See, in order to keep the younger participants here with us, Gunjan, I will say that both those case studies that you offered as excellent examples are very, very relevant. But if you go back to what Arti was saying, green is about also, and I think primarily, intent. How do we learn to size, to develop, like you said, and integrate a solution? It's not simply about being a vendor or somebody who comes and becomes a cost center for a client. How do we bring that element, like Dr. Jain used to speak about, of humaneness? How do we first be a decent human being, he used to say. Let's turn to Mr. Ramakrishna Rao for his comments.
Thank you so much. A very good evening to everybody who's listening, the panelists. I had an opportunity to chair a session of CII conference on renewable energy. The session I chaired was called Sustenance of Renewable Energy. And some of the speakers highlighted that whatever technology we brought in called green 2 decades ago have become outdated. Whether it was solar panels, the use of PV, the use of materials. And suddenly the whole world is finding that there are enormous amount of sustainable material waste. And the primary example is solar panels, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, because at one time the whole thing was promoted very highly, and they brought down the cost, so it was easy, affordable. But they have become redundant now with the changing climate, with the dust with the intense weather conditions. So one of the important careers that we discussed at that meet was that, like people who have been using PET bottles to create paving, using some other waste plastic to create, there is a huge career opportunity in looking at waste management of sustainable green material. A classic example is the use of new type of material that was created from waste. You know, the Chennai City Corporation, Chennai created briquettes, the help of a French company, actual solid waste, domestic solid waste. And then they found out that these briquettes, when burnt, gave out a sort of semi-toxic fume. So today there are plants which are set up to do this. So the idea is now we must seriously do a little R&D, bring new technology and say this is the waste and there is a big career opportunity. Like one of the panelists mentioned, it's not specific to architects like me or civil engineers or technology, but can be anybody. There are people with finance background, there are people with economics background, and these people can now make green as a career, not only as an alternate but as a main career, to look seriously at converting renewable, sustainable material into a useful product which will benefit not only our cities and urban areas, but will filter down to the smallest area. This is the one which I now seriously feel we must do, both at documentation level, creating some sort of an advisory board, and implementation level. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you for being here with us, Mr. Rao. Can I invite Pawan Kumar? Pawan is from Haridwar. He's been working with an organic research institute. He studied at the Pantnagar University many years ago, 30 years ago. Pawan, can I request you to turn on your video and say hello to us? No, he hasn't come in yet. Okay, I can see he's there. Or maybe Yatin, is it that he's not able to turn on his to unmute himself? Okay.
No, sir. No, sir. He has the controls to unmute
Okay,
himself.
he has controls. Thank you. Arti, your response, please, to all of these things that you heard so far.
I think the first response, and again, this is for all the students who've logged in. When we heard, what Professor Gunjan was saying, what came to my mind, I was actually reading a report on the HVAC sector, which said by 2050, we will need 45%, oh, sorry, let me rephrase that. 45% of energy will be consumed in cooling the spaces. Now, this is humongous. I mean, should we get into energy transition so that we can meet this need and then we start solving the greenhouse gas emission problem? Hell no, we can't do that. So we've got to look at systems in terms of what are ailing these systems, what are those root causes, and how can we begin building? And don't look at technology only as manufacturing or digital. Technology is also social, right? Social frameworking, getting people to understand and creating the advocacy pathways is also a part of solution development. So when we are looking at this level or this kind of a projection, it gave me a stomachache when I read that, to be honest. And I mean, architecture, civil engineering, infrastructure development, building construction, urban development, all of this has to converge.
Let me add to what you said, Arti. The news is grimmer. Well, you said, you must be right about this 45% of energy. The air conditioning industry today is at about 1 lakh crore, which is against about 350 lakh crores, which is our GDP for the country of the last year, right? It's a small percentage if you want to look at it that way. And yet, I must tell you that from this 90,000 to 100,000 crores, in the next 5 years at a CAGR of about 15%, we are moving to 250,000 crores. in only this sector of air conditioning manufacturers. There are two parts to it, of course. One is this split ACs or window ACs that most of us use. And the other is industrial air conditioning of the kind that Gunjan spoke about. Now, if you look at just split AC sector alone, in 2007, all of India had a total population of window ACs in those years. We didn't have split ACs as much, of 2 million in 2007. Today, every year, this last year, ending March, we produced 12.5 million ACs in 1 year between about 28 to 29 companies, right? And this figure is going up to 40 million by 2030.
So this is in the context of, let's say, consumer goods. I'm also thinking in terms of our love for device ownership. I was in Nairobi last month for the Civil Society Development Conference held by the United Nations. And I had asked two very pertinent questions, which literally sort of set the room afire. One was that, and I digress a little, but I must state that this was the first point I made, that when we look at energy transition, food security, waste management technology, water consciousness, and so on and so forth, can we look at transforming the motivators of transnational organized crime, because they are sitting like hawks on all of these possibilities? Now, my question is that where does organized crime, how does that come in? It is actually, if you look at it, it is always the younger generation that is reined in to continue with this kind of a system. But the interesting side is that organized crime possibly has been the only human system that has been highly productive, highly collaborative, and with minimal error rate. So the question to ask ourselves is that what the hell is wrong with the rest of us, right? This was the first question. The room actually laughed. And fortunately, they also included this in the Pact of the Future that's coming up, which is going to be signed by 193 member states. So there is action emerging in there. Second aspect that I made was that if you look at all the hardware, and I talk about digital and communication devices, all the hardware that has been, is, and is going to be, who is tracking the carbon footprint of this heavy load? The amount of plastic, the amount of mining that has to take place. So the point to make is that when we're looking at trust-based peer-to-peer architecture in the context of decentralization of the internet, can we have technology accesses available more commonly rather than promoting device ownership? So that is in the context of the whole ability to develop technologies. And I also say in the same breath that looking at how far we've come in the last 50 years, I think we have implicit trust and faith in the ability to create technology. But historically speaking, what we've never addressed or solved is the human problem.
I agree with you heartily.
Right. So this brings us actually to the next section of what we're going to talk about, if I may continue, unless we're inviting another panelist onto.
No, you can speak. You should resume. And I will invite all of you, particularly students, to chip in with your questions or your ideas, whatever they are, at the Q&A box, please. Please put in your views, because it is then that you will get more out of Arti ma'am. Go on. Yes, Arti.
Thank you. So the second aspect of what we're going to look at, or the next, is the green horizontal. So yes, we are looking at green careers. And when we think of careers, okay, it's a vertical, I go into environment, I go into waste management. But what are these horizontals? I think it's important for us to start from the horizontals. One, definitely, and most of us have spoken about this here at the panel today. One is technology. So we need to look at technology definitely as an enabler. And again, even in the context of privacy laws, the ethicality of it all, again, we come back to intention. I mean, starting from the cave era, when we made the first tool, still the latest LLM that we have, it's always only been about intention. So it is about applying ourselves and stepping forward as the next crop of decision makers. And I say this to all the students here, to really start doing justice and building those frameworks. Second, of course, is the financial modeling and pathways. This is another horizontal to consider, as a career path. So you basically equip yourself to cut across sectors if you are proficient or developing proficiency in any of these, horizontals. The third definitely is legal and policy frameworks. we need to articulate policies in a way that they make sense and not confuse us. Let's put it that way. How many of us enjoy reading legal documents? That's the question. So how many of us like to consume them and then build our approach towards things? No, we start imagining, we start building, and then we go and hunt, okay, what is the legality around this? What is the policy around it? It has to be policy, and legal frameworks are things that provide direction. But in the current frame of things, they actually make us fearful and they confuse us even further. So I think as an evolutionary pathway into correcting our own institutions, I would recommend that the students start looking at simplifying and making them more practical and consumable, digestible, right? So this becomes another very important area, and definitely, like we've spoken about, securing social equity. So when we look at technology, it's not just digital or manufacturing. This is also something that is a technology. And trust me when I say this, in the whole gamut, in the whole scheme of things, in the whole fabric, there are certain things that are, there are certain spaces that are empty, and there are certain things that are absent in there, right? When we look at the very aspect of education, I mean, I have friends who are 50 plus, and they're filmmakers today. You'd be shocked to know that they started out, one of them started out as a cardiologist and gave it up midway. I said, what the hell happened? He said, my mother wanted me to get into medicine, but I'm an artist. So, let us not fool ourselves. If you are on an average age of about 23, 24, I think you're going to live in this world till 2090. Minimum. 2090. What are we going to solve? What are we going to simplify? What are we going to become? What are we going to salvage? What are we going to allow? What are we going to disallow?
There is another interesting statistic for all of you and to you, Arti.
Mm-hmm.
From here to 2064, in the next 40 years, we are going to max it at about 9.5 billion people on the planet, and India will reach about 1.7 billion from the current 1.4 or so. Now, what is more interesting is that from 2064 to 2100, you said 2090, right? 2064 to 2100, in 36 years, India is going to lose about 700 million as population to reach about 1 billion from that 1.7 billion. Even more fascinating, China will be a little less than India at about 1.6 billion, but they are coming down to 0.8 billion. By 50%, their population is going to fall. And this is nothing to do with any disasters or Malthusian theories. This is to do with women, literacy, and education. This is a Seattle-based study, the University of Seattle. I can send you that document. Anyone who's interested, I can send you that. But the demographics are set to change after we have, shall we say, muddled through these next 40 years on how we will survive, as a race. Right.
Wonderful. And I think that is such an important perspective. So when we were talking about the transdisciplinarity of things, it is really important for us to look at what are going to be the population trends, what are going to be the public health trends, what are some of the upcoming viral infection trends, for example, right? And what are those time periods when viral infections accelerate? And there are many indicators of that. So it is about really acquiring that information to be able to say, this is where I would like to solve something and apply myself. And this is why I'm investing in myself to study, literally that. So these are the green horizontals. Let's quickly look at the green verticals. And let me just minimize this box because I can't see it myself. Okay. So when we look at green verticals, I think most of them have been spoken about, but it's always good to see it in a checklist. So here goes. And I will address some of these very important ones that I am involved with currently in terms, and I'm also an explorer. So by the way, we have somebody amongst us called Dr. Chakradhar, and I can see he's logged in. So maybe if, we can promote him to be a panelist. I'd like to invite him in as well, because him and we've been working on developing this entire portfolio for green hydrogen and other clean energy sources in the country.
We'll do that. We will do that.
Wonderful. So, and when we look at energy, and this is a humongous landscape. It is so huge that I'm not even able to visualize, all sides of it right now. And Dr. Chakradhar and I, we are constantly brainstorming and talking to a lot of government officials, and everywhere, ladies and gentlemen, what we hear is an acceptance of the fact that for energy transition, for even technology migration from, let's say, hydrogen mature economies and so on and so forth, what we will still lack is the social equity or the understanding of it. We still lack our range to carry out the right kind of, or let's say, the optimal life cycle assessment studies, because we're not able to visualize as to what are some of those interconnected aspects. So there is so much work, and we are only talking about fresh spaces. How about spaces that exist that will undergo this transition? Who's going to manage that change? Who's going to bring in the insight and awareness into the current actors to undergo that transition, right? So we really intensely, immensely need hands on deck. It's almost like I'm recruiting everybody, all the students here for the future, right? If you look at infrastructure and construction, I think Dr. Rao spoke very well about materials. I mean, that is something that I have been constantly creating advocacy for, I think for the last 3 years. You look at the Stockholm Resilience Center planetary boundary compromise radial diagram, and oh my God, it's all red. It's all going towards red and orange. So construction infrastructure is something which is one of the largest contributors of toxic waste after, let's say, retail and healthcare, right? Medical waste. So bio waste. So when you look at all of these things, there is immense amount of work, immense amount of pathway identification that all the students can really start exploring. Water management, it's very interesting. I was discussing this with a very dear friend, that water is the largest largest molecule found in the universe, and yet, with all the scientific capability, we do not understand water. Spiritually, we might. And we have become, because it is freely available, because we've been used to water, we handle it so poorly. And correct me if I'm wrong, it again comes back to intention. So I've got 10 points here, but they're all point to intention. So I could have actually written intention 10 times and let all of you figure out what you want to do with your lives. So waste management, all right? And what Dr. Rao said converges right here. Transport and mobility, space technology, manufacturing, supply chain. Supply chains are in a mess. They are entangled. To unravel the current supply chains, to put them in a row is not an easy task. Even with the current adult capacity that the world has, we are incapable of doing that. Unless we shift our intention, we shift our purpose, we shift our attitude and behavior. Manufacturing, supply chain specifically, because this is where consumption patterns are also created and sort of exchanged. Public health, definitely. I think Professor Rachna spoke a lot about that. Agriculture, you'd be shocked to know at one point of time I was interviewing this child in Jammu Kashmir. So I was working about 40 kilometers away from the line of control. And this kid's father was a farmer. And I asked him, Beta Pitaji kya karte hain? He says, kuch nahi. I said, kuch to karte honge. It was upon this discussion that I discovered he was a farmer. Interestingly, the next set of my conversation with this kid was that, which is your favorite subject? He goes, chemistry. I said, organic, inorganic. He goes, organic. So I literally laughed. Then I sat with him. We Google searched that how do you create value for yourself, for where you come from, and for the future together. So it is about perspective again. Climate and environment, I put it right at the end because, well, it's the root of all that we see above, right? So these are directional for you, I hope. And I think based on the discussion that we've been having, I would really ask you to think out of the box, think creative, give yourselves designation of careers that don't exist, but you can see the interconnection in there. Do not be scared and do not fear that. And at this point, I would actually, if so you would permit me, I would like to invite Dr. Chakradhar to share a few perspectives in terms of his experience in what we've been exploring so far. but I
Well,
don't see him on the
he
panel.
had joined in as a panelist, but he's moved out again, Arti. I don't know why he did that.
Okay. Can we have him back? Is that possible?
I don't know. He's not even here. There he is again. One more. Let me see if I can. Yeah,
Yeah, he's here.
Okay.
I see him.
there you are. Ms. Chakravarti, you can speak if you want to. We have promoted you just now. Can you say hello to us? No. I think there's some challenge out there. Yatin, can you help me, please? I'm not able to promote him to panelist.
I just promoted him. I think he has gone back.
Well, Arti, I think it is, yeah, there he is. Declined to be promoted. Okay, you can see it on the screen. Fair enough. Maybe he doesn't want to speak. Maybe he wants to listen to you. That's fine. Yeah.
But I can tell you this, over the course of our relationship here with everybody, you will see a lot of him because he's extremely dynamic and he works a lot in terms of making those connections. However, I think this is where I would like to really end what you see on the screen, but that's not where the session is ending.
Absolutely.
I'd like to wish everybody here happy exploring before I take you on to an activity. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here and invite everybody to do something really fun. Let me just get to my screen and
well, I sincerely hope there he is. He's back again now.
Is he?
Well, Chakravarti, would you want to speak up? Would you want to share some thoughts?
It's always tempting to be in the same room with Arti and say something. But I think I'm enjoying the tenor of the conversation and how robust it is. Is just missing those days at Virginia Tech and University of Houston in having a spirited conversation like this. So I just want to leave Arti with the question I put in the chat. Arti, from your viewpoint, what are the human challenges to green careers or to our careers and henceforth? I think that's your favorite question anyway. So I just want to bring you back to that.
Thank you.
May I, before you respond, to make this easier for some of the students here, invite you to speak on the specificities of jobs that are available today, practices of architecture or of, let's say, plumbing. Well, I could have talked about electrical consulting, for example. Sure. You see, if I were to take a building, any building that's existing, and if you have, say, 100,000 liters of water that a building is using, it could be a 5-star hotel, it could be an educational institution of the kind that Rachna is running. What happens is that 100,000 liters sort of explodes to 36 million liters in a year, if I were to take 360 days of usage. And most of them do not realize that if they had a trained water manager or a green professional, they could save as much as, say, 20 lakhs a year in rupee terms, while in carbon terms, the impact would be if they used up all that water back as low carbon water and did not use bore wells and, the horrible systems of long distance river water, they will have saved 600 tons of carbon. Now, to me, the ability to find youngsters, jobs of this kind, with some training, if I'm an architect, an engineer, an MBA, if what's his name, Gunjan is here, he knows what I'm talking about. If there are ways we can train them into becoming water managers or energy managers, that is when we will bring the change. India is taking apologetically a target of just 1 billion tons for 2030. The government of India has taken this, right? And they never say this. I mean, it's a percentage that you work out from the 2007 figure and so on. And then they say that we will become net zero in 2070. I could have spoken for the next, say, 15 minutes to give you a very simple math on how we can save as much as 300 billion tons in just by just this, the rest of what is left of this decade now. If only we had water managers and energy managers, right?
Exactly.
Arti, over to you.
Thank
we
you,
have to
sir.
get very specific.
Yes,
We have
in
to
fact,
get
I'm
these
going to
jobs.
answer both the questions together because somewhere I see that they tie in terms of the deficit of capability to solve such a huge problem that wastes water and creates, such a mess. And
Right.
second, the job aspect.
Absolutely.
I think it's a part of conditioning to think that once I acquire education, I will take up a job. What happened to entrepreneurship? What happened to the courage to take the blame and enjoy the credit at the same time? That resilience or that ability is the format in which these challenges can be solved. So to answer even Dr. Chakradhar's question, that what are those human challenges, even that is converging into what we're talking about.
Right.
It is about the risk-taking ability. It is about saying that I perform as a link in the chain of continuity, and I will fulfill my purpose in recognizing what I recognize and consider it my duty to apply myself to solve it. It is literally that much. So when I say the human problem, I've had so many discussions with Dr. Chakradhar and we are common in a couple of international networks also, and we always table this, that when you look at the human problem, intention, attentiveness, to ability to take risk, and stay strong in the face of challenges. Trust me, I can say this, that it really is about shifting your personality type. I always tell this to the students, that right before the examination, you're always nervous and you're thinking of all the possible daily devatas, right? Do you realize how much time you are wasting in getting nervous when you can just tell yourself, okay, I just might fail, but let me see how I should carry this because I did not study enough.
Right. Dr. Ivy has raised hand. Maybe we'll allow him to speak.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry to cut it. Yeah.
No. Please go on.
Yes, Dr. Chakradhar, you wanted to speak.
Yeah. So I just wanted to spin Arti's answer with my experiences. So a couple of experiences have kind of defined me, and Arti knows this quite well since we've been to meetings together recently. Is, are you able to listen to anybody? Are you able to talk to anybody? So I remember visiting a friend at Harvard, and he was telling me, that professor there, nobody goes into his room and spends more than 10 minutes because he will get bored of you. And so I took 10 minutes and I went into his room, prepared myself, went into his room. I was there for 45 minutes. And similarly, there was a guy, his name is I.J. Good. Good was a statistician. He worked during the World War in decrypting the Nazi messages and so on. Again, PhD students and Department of Statistics at Virginia Tech would be scared to talk to him. So I just walked into his room and I spoke to him. I think I spoke to him for 3 hours, and the rest of the week I was there every day. And he was 85 years old and he was telling me all these wonderful stories. So what was the difference for me walking in? The thing that I'm reading into what Arti is saying is, do we have an open mind? Can we listen? Can we build on what is being said? Are we vulnerable enough to say, I don't know, can I keep my PhD aside? And can I go take the conversation further? And when I came back to India after 19 years in the US, I think everybody was rooting for my failure and running back to the US, and I haven't yet. It's been 18 years since I've come back. And the first assignment I had taken was in oil and gas. And the only reason I was given that assignment was during the day, the customer, when he was going through the whole organization, L&T Engineering Services, he seemed to like me. And he says, okay, if you give me Dr. Chakradhar as my project manager as your lead role, then I'm going to sign the contract today. And so obviously I didn't have a choice. And I did installation engineering for the next 2 years, and I never heard of this field as well.
Yeah.
Similarly, a year later, there was not much work in 2008, and I went into L&T and got myself engineering work from the nuclear manufacturing division. And I remember the business unit head asking there, what do you know about nuclear? And I said, I don't know anything, except that when I was a child, I was playing with nuclear reactors in BARC, Bombay. And if a PhD in mechanical engineering cannot help you with your engineering work, I don't know who can. And so it's, that ability to dive into something and then figuring out how to do that. And I'll
Yes.
stop there. And
Thank you so much for saying that. And this is really about the immersiveness that we open ourselves to. Otherwise, you see, you can never ever swerve around the ocean. You have to swim through it. So prep yourselves to be able to swim through it and get to the other side. With that, I'm going to start sharing my screen. And I invite all the students here, based on the conversation that we've had, I'd like you to take any of the post-its that fancy you and just mention a career that you've been able to figure out based on this discussion and you'd like to chase after further. So we have about 5 minutes, and each of you can, so I've put some segments also here, but I have a feeling that the YouTube segment should become like the heaviest in terms of responses. So take about 5 minutes and see which aspect of things would you like to apply yourselves to.
Great. You can put in your responses at the Q&A so that she can then update it here.
So I've also shared the link with everybody. You have direct access to this sheet. So just take post-it and start typing.
Oh, lovely. Okay.
Yes. So I'd like to see a lot of responses pop up. And I want to see a lot of people also pop up on the screen.
I put that link up there for all of you. I'm sure you can sort of
let me know if there are any access issues also, by the way, while you open.
Very fascinating session, Arti, I must say.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. And Shubhajit has asked a question here. What innovation in sustainable agriculture can lead to the development of climate resilient crops and farming practices? Because continuously climate change is a threat to food security. See, food security as a concept has two big influences on it as of today. One definitely is climate, and the second is that most of the chemical companies have gone into seed and fertilizer. So
let me respond to this question, Shubhajit. If there are civil engineers here, mechanical engineers here, I can offer them jobs. There are at least 5 or 6 of these gram panchayats that we are driving, directing, mentoring across a few districts in Jharkhand, here in Karnataka, as well as in Telangana. And what does that mean? You join as an engineer, you work on watershed and the development of the watershed. Then you look at how you can begin community interactions with the farmers there and work on crop patterns and what you can do to change crop patterns. You understand soil health. You understand the quality of water with water test kits that you train them with. And you try and see how, for instance, to every ton of water, how much as crop productivity happens, right? India is about 60% of China's productivity, crop to crop, if I were to look at it. China has, interestingly, 3 times India's land mass, and yet has the same amount of cultivable land of about 1.5 million square kilometers as India does, right? So why is it that India is not able to increase its crop productivity and its produce? We are today at about 320 million tons. We need to go to about 450 million tons in the next 10 years. Can you see a job for yourself there in the agricultural sector, Shivajit, and people like you who have asked that question? Yeah, have you come back with any responses there, any of you?
There is an access issue, but check now because I've updated, if you can see my screen, actually updated the access.
What the human challenges, okay.
Right.
Access issue, she says, I am saying, okay.
See if you can access it now. Otherwise, you can drop the responses in Q&A, and maybe I will populate this on the sheet and
Right.
share it with you, so you can all have a look at what are the diverse thoughts that have come out after having this discussion in the session. And this becomes your sort of, a pool where you can start looking at ideas and start playing with them and start developing them as you move along.
Well, we could do that. And Arti, to my mind, this is the beginning of a conversation. Rachna, Rajpal, Gunjan, thank you both for being here. And I know you are key mentors who can help your students, not just the students who are participating today. What I would request both of you to do is to see that this conversation does not end today, this afternoon. I will connect you to Arti Ahluwalia, or somebody will, our Yatin will do from the PJNT. And what is important is for us to see, for you to see as mentors and teachers in your college, in your institutions, on how some of these students can gain very, very specifically from the kind of counsel that Arti Ahluwalia can offer. Or maybe Dr. Chatradhar can offer, if she can connect him to this pool that we will create, shall we say. Rachna and Gunjan, can you respond to that, please?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sure, sir. I agree to that. I agree.
Right. Gunjan, yes?
Yes, sure, sir, and sure, ma'am. And I also have one question on the behalf of all the students that I mentioned very beginning.
Yes.
Ma'am, can I go ahead?
Yes, please, sir.
Yes, very good. Frankly, ma'am, we really, as a teacher, also we got insight the way that you have put your perspective here. In fact, it's good to learn from your this wonderful the session that you have delivered, and it's also clear us a lot of points as a teacher too. So this is my first point. Things, my gratitude to you. Now the question that I just want to put, and it is again very practical. Last 5-6 years, I was continuously engaged with my students, and it is you can say the building sectors. I have given them, arranged them personal training for as a energy simulation trainer, and they become an energy simulation expert. Someone is in the water expert. In fact, Hariharan sir has given this workshop as a water professional manager, and also some of them getting trained in the auditing sector that Bureau of Energy Efficiency is giving in all. And then few students, as on time, I'm I'm informing you last is in the Infosys Mysore in their Solar Decathlon India. Their intent only to participate in this competition because earlier he was very motivated for a software job, but having a taste of this green sectors, working in last continuously with this Wipro climate change, whether NSD, National Student Design by the ISRE and another competition. He find the taste of this competition, and he was there for the job. But what issue the student and reporting to me is that, and also I observe, sir, this is good to work, profile is also good, but this sector is not paying. So this sector is not paying, means when they are going, because today the market is very LinkedIn or Facebook driven. So very few years of their entry in the job market, they are finding that their friends has this package from the software company.
No,
then
Gunjan,
further switch over this
Gunjan, I
package
will
from
stop
another
you there.
company.
I have to stop you there and tell you that you can take a job. Your students can take a job today if they are IT professionals in Infosys. They will not get more than 30,000 rupees, or in Wipro Group. They can come to a job, if they are civil engineers, they can come in and join a watershed group and they will get a minimum of 40,000 rupees in the sector today, right? Please do not please be disabused of this notion that the IT sector pays a lot more money. It does not today. And that has changed easily about 5 years ago, Gunjan. And therefore, I think you owe it, you and people like Rachna, owe it to your students to make them understand that the IT sector is not milk and honey anymore, right? Please understand there are people coming back. Dr. Chatradhar talked about how he was in some university in the United States. I came back 30 years ago, and I can tell you people want to come back to India because there are no opportunities in Europe. There are no opportunities in the UK. There are no opportunities in the United States. And for a parent to educate a child going into, say, to a PS program in the United States, it costs so much more than it does in India. The health program or the system in India is so much more superior to anything that lies in the UK or in the United States. And people who are retiring quietly are coming back here because they cannot get healthcare of the kind that they can get in India. So let's not think that India does not have a future. India has an excellent future. We might disagree on a few things on the democracy and the political trajectory in this country. Some of us might be right, some of us might be left. But then that's about the same there too, if you take the Republicans and the Democrats in the United States. So in terms of opportunity, Gunjan, I can tell you that clearly green professionals today are winning. I know a young man, young is about 35, 36. He spent about 12, 13 years in the industry. He's a mechanical engineer from somewhere, from Kolkata somewhere. And Imran is today earning probably 300,000 rupees on something that he does in energy management. He doesn't work on water management. I go to him sometimes, or he comes to me for a few things on energy management. He works in one of the hotel chains in India today. So it takes a little bit of time. 12 to 15 years is not a long time. I can tell you that there are a lot more jobs, and this is going to intensify in the next 5 years. And that's one of the reasons I requested Arti Ahluwalia to speak today on why green careers make sense. Absolutely. And Gunjan, if you have such students who want to take such, send them here. Let me see if I can,
That's the reason I have pointed out this issues
So
right now.
If I can add to this.
So now
yes,
I will
Arti.
request all to, yes, Arti ma'am, please
If I can add to this is that, I mean, when you look at technology companies, who are the few names that we can count on our fingertips? And anybody who's a fan of Lord of the Rings would know that we need to bring down the Tower of Sauron. Right. So that being that being said, do not go after brand names.
Yeah.
It is not something that is going to feed you. You will feed it and it'll become even more monstrous. And this is not the good monster. So I personally think that we need to get focused on collaborative, entrepreneurial, systems, students together, building, their own livelihood capacities and avenues, and yet solving large-scale problems. This is what we need.
Right. We have really overstepped time. We are at 4:28.
Don't forget the art in it.
Conversation. Very lovely. I hope these students enjoyed it as much as we all did, participating, exchanging. Right. Thank you so much, Rachna. Thank you, Gunjan, for being here.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Sekradar. Payal Jain, thank you so much. Would you want to have a last word? Okay. And of course, Pavan. Pavan, can I, since you've been here, can I request you to speak for a minute or two, because you're doing something very, very fascinating. He works from out of Haridwar. He's lived in Dehradun for many years. He's a child of the Gadwal, and Pavan has been working on creating water games for farmers. He's worked, and he will give you some impressive statistics on how he's worked with a few hundreds of thousands of farmers. Over to you, Pavan, in the next 2 minutes, if you can speak. And let me also tell you that the next month, the last Friday, I will invite you to be the key speaker in this session. Over to you, Pavan.
Thank you, Hari. Thank you so much. And the signal went off when you called me first. But anyway, I enjoyed today's conversations. I think that the topic is of immense interest, because I have been mentoring students. Students have been coming to us in our soil labs and trying to do something. And we find that the level of the skills and knowledge that they have are perhaps not ready for the 21st century.
How many farmers are you working with just now, Pavan?
Around 1 lakh of farmers we have trained.
And how many districts would that be?
True trainer farmers, true farmers.
That is, you do
train
the
farmers. Yeah, so not directly, but through the training of the trainers program, and working on soil health, water conservation, and the whole systems on agriculture as a culture. Bringing the culture of agriculture into our mainstream of our life. So this is something that we have been, I'll share that, the culture of agriculture.
Yes.
And
Shubhajit Bad, you asked a question on agriculture. Here is the man. He's been working. In case you're looking to see if you can, switch to a green career, Go to Pawan Kumar Saab.
Absolutely.
Okay, go on. Pawan.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
So we facilitate farmers to become change agents. We facilitate them to become trainers. And through them, there have been many students in the rural areas and different places who have been trained by our farmers. Because farmers are the source of a lot of wisdom, knowledge, and practicality. Sometimes sitting on the armchair and sitting in an AC room, we tend to lose this thing of reality. And so the farmers, we facilitate the farmers. As I was saying yesterday, we conduct daily programs with the farmers and listen to them. We try to become listeners rather than become speakers. And so I'll speak on some other day when you call me and you give me time. So today's meeting was very good.
I wanted them to get a quick glimpse into the kind of very unusual work that you do, and that's why I requested you to speak today. There we are. I think, like all good things, this has to come to an end. We can go on for another 2 hours, I'm sure. But thank you so much, Arti, for being here with us. Yatin, do we close? Do you have anything else to say? Or if Payal is around, she can say, if she can add yes, Shubhajit, you have raised your hand. You want to speak. How do I now get you to, one moment. If I can help you to speak, because you've been interacting and coming up with something or the other. Are you there? Yes? Yes, Shubhajit, you can speak now.
Oh, yes, sir. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yeah. Sir, last, sir, talked about means agriculture, that how to explore your lab, sir. I have to say.
How to what? How to
explore your lab, sir. The
Pavanji's lab, I think.
Okay. Yes. Arti, you want to respond?
No, I think he's asking about Pavanji's work.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll keep that for the next time around, Shubhajit, unless, of course, Pavan wants to give a quick response to that.
Well, we have been working at the grassroots level, number one. We also have our own lab, the soil testing and the water testing facilities that we have. And we have created an app around it so that this thing reaches the farmer, the knowledge reaches the farmers directly, and also digitize this whole process of soil testing, right from the stage of collection to the testing and the dissemination, and also at the community level, the dissemination of the results of the soil testing collectivized at the community level, working with the Gram Panchayats, facilitating them, the Panchayat leaders, to take care of their soil resource, the water resource in their respective villages through data-enabled, knowledge and probably wisdom, hopefully, as we say that over a period of time. So only the interested people are facilitated further. If they are not interested, we say that the time probably has not come. Do not waste the time unnecessarily, because unless the desire to change comes from within, no amount of providing inputs, facilities, studies will be enough to. So, but I will speak on that experience.
Yes, and Arti emphasize that too. Green is first about intent. Green is first about being a decent human being and all that. To both Rachna and Gunjan, I will only request you to do this if you can. Please have your students look beyond cities and their challenges. There is 80% of our water, 82% of all annual renewable water is used for cultivation. What are we doing with this 7% of wastewater in our cities, or 12% of industrial wastewater? The real challenge lies there, the opportunity lies there. And there is money in it, I can assure you once again. With that, I think we should close for today. Thank you so much. Arti, any last word from you, Arti, before we
most welcome. I think it was so wonderful for me to be here. But as a last word, I think I would seriously tell all the students, be fearless, because the future is really scary.
Very nice,
right, and that is what's going to break the chain and help us reinvent ourselves. So good luck with life, and as far as possible, we'll try and stay in touch. Thank you so much, everyone here on the panel.
Wonderful. With that, we will conclude. Thank you so much for being here. Have a great weekend.
You too. Thank you.